This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. It's 5:30 now. And our first order of business is open time for the public. Tammy, are you the public today?
Hello? Yes, I am. Tammy Walunas, Historical Society President. It was brought to my attention that someone was told that the preserving of the artifacts and historical documents that are located in the library, because we cannot store them at the house, do not fall under CPC money, that recording the historical documents of our town is not community preservation.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that too. So to fill everybody in, I had spoken with Johanna, who is the library interim director, because she has been sort of coordinating the current CPC project for preserving historical documents at the library. And so she was looking into, expanding and future options for that kind of project. So she came up with a proposal, and I sent it over to Stuart Saginaw, who is the state coalition executive director, or whatever his position is. And he said that no, because for some reason, because digitizing is not preserving the original document. So let's say you had a piece of paper that was falling apart and crumbling, and you carefully restored that piece of paper. That would count as preserving historic artifact. But he said digitizing doesn't count. He gave me this whole description of why, and he said there was this, at the state level, there was this agreement. And so he basically kind of shut down our idea to extend the project, which was a super bummer. And I don't think we need to go back and uneligibilize the previous project, because I think it was legitimate. But it does mean that we couldn't do this really cool project that Johanna wanted to do, which is with the documents Tammy's talking about at the library, doing some genealogy projects, making it more user-friendly for people to look online. He basically said digitization and organizing and maintaining does not count as preserving.
Okay.
Sucks.
I'm going to suggest that we try to do some more research on that, so we can answer that with more clarity.
Yeah. I'm just curious, you have money being put aside for the historical preservation, yet we keep just buying land instead.
I know. So let me share with you guys, since Mark is asking for more specificity, let me share with you what Stuart, how he described this. Okay, just one second. So he said the project is definitely not an allowable use of CPA funds. Is it a historic asset? I would say it's an artifact, so that's why I thought initially, yes, that would work. He said you can't spend CPA funds on anything other than the 6 resources listed above, which is building, structure, vessel, document, or artifact, of accounts. He said the website was not one of those things. So digitizing it on the website did not count. He said, even if websites were one of the 6 resources listed in definition, you must also find a verb in the CPA allowable uses chart that describes the project. You must be acquiring a historic resource, preserving a specific resource, or rehabilitating one. The project is best described as support of the historic category. You'll notice that support activities are not allowed. He says, we also urge caution should you receive an application in the future for digitization activities, as those are also in the support historic category. CPA funds are for work on actual historic documents to preserve or rehabilitate them, not for making an electronic copy of the documents. That does nothing to preserve or rehabilitate the documents. See attached letter from the DOR on this topic, and then there's something from the Department of Revenue. So that's pretty much the whole
Tammy,
thing.
to clarify, what the library was working on, the last project that they had CPC money for to work on, was the digitizing of the Macris records. So when that project was completed, she wanted to know whether she could get money for any other projects. She first approached me, and then I think, Sierra, I scuffed her onto you. And this is what resulted of that. So she has not been able to go any further with that. But the original money was for that digitization of the Macris inventory, which was completed.
Mhm.
And it was not the librarian that was working on it. It was someone else that was doing it.
Okay. Sierra, would you mind forwarding me that letter so that I can let the rest of the Historical Society know that that is what has happened?
Yes,
And
I'll send
then
it to you right now.
we will try to figure out a way to preserve those documents that are in there, because right now they're in a filing cabinet that no one can get to. So if anybody needed to do research on it, they have no way of getting to those documents.
Well, they do. They would have to request that of whoever is on duty at the library to get behind there. And there is a locked cupboard on the outside of the library, over by one of the study tables there, where the maps are and everything. There's a locked cupboard there that has books in it that most of which pertain to the town.
Very good. All right, then.
So I know that Tammy, Carol, who's doing the project, I know there's a little bit of money still left from the previous project, and so it's maybe she could use whatever's left to start working on that. I'm not sure if that balance would be enough for her to finish that project, but maybe you could check with Johanna about that if you have.
I will.
Tammy, can you put your email address in the chat, or maybe I don't think there is a chat on this. Can you tell me your email address?
It's Tam, TAM,
Mhm.
WALUNAS, just my name, at gmail.com.
Okay, I'm forwarding you this and the attachment that explains all the sad details. But yes, I was also really bummed out about this. Because,
Sierra, could you distribute that to the rest of the committee also?
Sure.
Thanks. I was looking online as we were talking about this. There have been projects approved for this up through 2019 for specifically digitalizing historical records in other towns. So we may want to just do more research at the state level also.
I would greatly appreciate that. Yeah, because if other towns are able to do it, we're not. What check box are we not doing?
Mhm. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Tammy. Sorry for the bad news.
Nope, thank you, and have Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay, so I have forwarded that documentation to everyone. Yes, and if anybody, Mark, if you want to do some independent research and see if you can find any better news, by all means.
Sounds good.
So, no other members of the public are here today. Let's move on to the minutes from December 6th. Would anybody like me to put them up on the screen?
Please.
Okay, just one second. Go. Can everyone see? Make it a little bit larger.
I had two things I wanted to suggest clarifying. Is that okay? So under committee liaison reports, under Greenway, Mark K. The Greenway Committee may be presenting some more projects. I don't know if we need to be more specific. It'd be a match for Mass Trails Grant. We want to be more specific. It'd be an up to 20% match for a Mass Trails Grant.
You got that, Janet?
Yes, that's fine. I wrote that down. Match for 20% grant for Mass Trails. Yep.
And the other piece, again, related to what I thought I had said, open space, Mark Cass is the fourth one down in that group. The end of it says might request a 20% match. That's not at least what I meant to say. It really was that issue of a short-term, the town expending $250,000 that we rapidly reimbursed for the recent Mountain Waters project.
So what would you like to say exactly? Just take that out. Might request. Or
So I guess the stuff that's in the open space sort of is what's Greenway. So actually, if you just take what's in open space and move it up to Greenway, and then either we leave out the open space or have to have a new line in there.
okay.
Let's take out open space and just make that Mark's Greenway update. That makes sense.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
and then just eliminate the open space comment included in Greenway.
I think that would be good.
Okay, I can do that. What else?
Will we accept the minutes as amended?
Second.
All in favor, please voice vote with your last name. Simmons, aye.
Brown?
Cassis.
Camp I.
Darnold,
Haley, aye.
All right. Sounds like it passed. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Janet. Okay, next up on our agenda is to talk about the annual community preservation plan. So, just as a refresher, an annual community preservation plan is a best practice for a community preservation committee like us. We haven't had one in the past, mostly because we adopted the CPA pretty early, and we were like, before any of this was like, before the coalition was put together and all of these best practices were shared widely. I think it was before then that Virginia created this, and she sort of ran it her own way beautifully. But now that we have, we're here in the present, it is technically best practice to put together a CPA plan, which will also help us put together a CPA budget, which will help us spend money before we get it if we need to, as we previously discussed. So it's all beneficial to put together this plan. And it's basically a CPA plan. It includes priorities for each of the committees that are involved, project status, roster of members, we basically don't have one to work from, except I took one, as I sent to you all, from, what even town was that? I took one from another town, Gloucester, and started to try to sort of update what it might look like if we were to use this as a template. So I did share that draft with you all just so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. But I think what I would like to do is put together a working group, like a small working group, to finish this up. And I think we need someone from, it's really like the three categories. If we could get someone from open space, someone from historic, and someone from housing, that would be me to wait.
I mean, I couldn't understand. What are the three? Open space?
Open space, historic, and housing.
Housing, okay. And what was the third one?
Housing, historic.
Historic, okay. For some reason, my volume is not working well tonight. Okay.
No worries.
Sierra, your mic is a little garbled. I'm having
Yeah.
trouble sometimes too, but
I'm having a hard time.
Let me bring my computer a little closer to my face.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. You need to get closer.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
So, for the CPA plan,
Not you, Randall.
and before we can get into working group plans, I want to talk about the timeline. So there's also the annual public hearing, which you all may remember from previous years. It's where you set it up to be right before your CPC meeting is going to be. You say, hey, announce to the public. It has to be advertised 2 weeks ahead. Hey, if you have any input to the CPA plans or priorities, please come to this public hearing. Generally, nobody shows up, and so you schedule it before a meeting, and then you just have your meeting if no one shows up. This is what Stuart gave us the guidance for, and you guys let me know that Virginia gets to do that as well. And so what we can do is organize that public hearing around when we decide to publish the CPA plan. So, for example, if you wanted to consider any input from the community before we go to town meeting, we could have this public hearing in March, like early March. That way, I don't know, it can help to sort of inform us moving forward. And then we could try to get the annual plan in gear around in time with the May or whenever it is town meeting. Another option is we have our CPA plan run with our fiscal year, which is July through June, which would mean holding the hearing maybe April or May. But if we wanted to have the hearing, and so basically what we could do is we could draft the CPA plan, publicize it before the hearing and say, hey, any comments or suggestions on this plan? There probably won't be, but it's like a best practice. Take in any comments and then publish the plan either around town meeting or around fiscal year end time would be the 2 times I might suggest. We could also do it by the calendar year, but things don't really run by the calendar year here, so I just didn't think that was best. If we did want to get it done before early March to be publishing early, we need to get started like pretty much right away and get it done by February so we could have enough time to publicize it. So any thoughts on timing? Any questions? I'm sorry if this is sort of an unclear thing I'm describing. There's sort of many elements, but thoughts, responses?
I had comments, if it's okay. I think in an ideal world, even if we can't get it together this year, for the following year, the plan should be developed before we get the requests in and the big set of requests in by May town meeting. To me, it makes sense to have the committee's priorities set, or at least some sense of them, before we start accepting requests for money. Whether we can do it this year or not, we can talk about, but in the long run, I think that's a good goal.
Okay. Do you all agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So that's awesome. So we could try to pull it together for this year. We could have sort of more of a bare bones outline. But that said, if we wanted to get a draft out in March, we would need to have it ready by February because we need to publish it at least 2 weeks before and work it out with Anne and Lucy, whoever does the like publicity for events. So that said, who would like to be in a working group with me to finish this?
I don't mind.
Mark and
I'm
Randall?
willing.
That would be awesome. We could have one more person without having a quorum if anybody else feels eager to join.
I'm willing if
Okay, so let's have the group be Mark Cassis, Randall, and myself. You may get a reach out from us, Bob, asking you about historical priorities. We can also pull from the open space plan that already exists. But I will reach out to you guys separately. We may be able to work in a Google Doc via email. We may decide we want to meet in person to discuss a little bit or on Zoom. But now that I know that you are my people, I will reach out to you with next steps very soon. And you're welcome to look at that document I already started and start messing with it.
I think it's okay to have this year's plan be more open and nebulous, as to set realistic goals.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, let's not, considering that the baseline is us not having a plan at all, anything we do is 100% improvement. So we really can't go wrong. Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on all of that?
I mean, do you want specifics about I'm sorry, who did I cut off?
Go ahead.
And specifics about the draft that you sent out, or the example. I think especially important on page 3 is that table of what we get and the state match. Mm-hmm. I think that shows any resident that reads it, like how much we're leveraging from the state. I know there's been semi-organized pushes in the past to eliminate the CPA. So I think that is huge to include that. Yeah,
I love that. So Mark, you had the updated one of that, right? You could just
as of a few months ago, we've received almost $3 million from the state. We collected 3.6 million, slightly under, and received 2.965 million, and that actually it's actually higher than that. This is a little out of date. It was before this last November. So being specific, I can get specific numbers to put in there.
That's fantastic information, I think, to be able to justify us continuing and on with the CPA. The other thing that I thought, go ahead.
It's about 85% or more, 90% of what we're collecting locally.
I think the other thing that I would say was important that wasn't included in Gloucester's is, or maybe it is on that map. Or no, so basically have a list of projects we have accomplished. Include that somewhere, a table of completed projects and costs, just so people can see what we have done. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of them. Maybe we could include highlights, or maybe we could include all of them as an appendix. I'm also working on organizing the database that we have with the state, because it is like a huge mess. So maybe that's probably not going to do that in the next 2 months, but that's definitely something that will benefit us to have like a clearer handle on.
The state, the CPC coalition has a list of every single Southampton project with a cost.
Oh, okay.
So we can just do a link.
Yeah, yeah, correct. That it's on that site. Just go to that site.
Fantastic.
The coalition site.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one I was referring to that was kind of messy. Like, it's missing a lot of information, but we'll work on continuing to clean it up. And it's much better to send people a link.
Do you all get the coalition newsletters?
I do.
I think, Sierra, I've been forwarding them to you.
Yes, I do get them myself now, Bob. You can now find
okay.
For a while, I wasn't, but now I am.
Should we be forwarding them to the rest of the group or what?
That might be good.
I get it.
Yeah, I
get it also.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How about this? If you don't get it and you want to be added to the list, I can just give your email to the people, Chase, at the coalition. So let me know. Okay.
One little picky thing, Sarah. I know you copied this from Gloucester, but I think it's on page 15. Mm-hmm. I don't know, maybe 7 or something like that. It says city instead of town.
Oh, yeah.
That's just a little picky thing, but I'm sure you'll pick up on those.
I did not go all the way through. I was like very bare bones, like throwing
word for word. I know. City. Yeah.
We'll
okay.
definitely have to go back in and change all towns to cities, all references to Gloucester.
Okay.
There's going to be quite a few things for us to catch. So this will definitely be like an ongoing process, but thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on that topic?
Sierra, I just, and I don't know what this refers to, but I made a note here that somewhere in correspondence that you have been sending out, you are referring to one of the categories as community housing. The actual category is affordable housing. Community housing to me has a connotation of a halfway house, mentally ill people. That's not what this is set up to do. What it is set up to do is provide low-income people the opportunity to purchase affordable housing. And so I would prefer that we use the term affordable housing rather than community housing.
But I think the legal term is community housing, though.
Legally?
I think that's in the bill.
It's in the bylaw, yes.
The original bylaw.
It's been used interchangeably. But I agree, being colloquial in conversation, calling it affordable housing makes it clearer like what it actually means. But it's true, we do sometimes need to use the legal term described in the bylaw.
Yeah, I mean, I was not aware of that. Okay, all right, I got you.
We can clarify it in our correspondence, but in the bill, it's community housing.
Yeah. Maybe we could even put something in the CPA plan that describes it, like.
Well, the CPC coalition says community housing in quotes, and then low and moderate income housing for individuals and families, including low or moderate income senior housing.
Wow. Okay, that says it, doesn't it?
Okay.
We'll make sure that definition is in the CPC plan so that you know what the heck we're talking about. Okay, so are we ready to move on to the next item? Okay, so that is discuss the annual town meeting budget article for our annual budget. So this was something that we discussed earlier in the fall, at the end of the calendar year. We thought we might have to get this budget passed in December in order to get the Mountain Waters project funded. Thankfully, that was not the case. But it is, again, a best practice to have an annual budget that looks different than the article that's been put forth in the annual town meeting each year before now. It looks very similar, but it's just missing a couple things that allow us a little more flexibility with spending. So this is really just sort of like an informational topic here because there's not much we can do with it yet. But basically, here, let me get the budget up. Basically, we will need to make some sort of projection for the FY25 surcharge totals, which should maybe be based on how the housing market's doing. So we may need some help or just someone in this group who has a sense of what that's looking like to help us update that number when the time comes. Because all of these numbers in the budget that I sent out are based on our projections, which are basically based on previous years and could change each year. So, for example, if the surcharges were like $280,000 this past year, who's to say they're going to be $280,000 next year? We really don't know. So that's a top aspect. And then also the state match could also change. Our budget numbers have the state match at, our projections have it at 50%, which this year it was 59%. It could get worse next year, could get better. So that's something we could decide whether we want to increase our projection or lower it. I think it's always better to be conservative when you're projecting. And then also there's any expected projects that are going to be coming forth in the annual town meeting. So we really can't finalize the annual budget until we have all the requests in for the annual meeting. So I just wanted to give you guys an update that this draft exists, but it's not really something that we're going to have final until sort of coming up close to the annual town meeting.
Can I ask to clarify, just make sure that we understood the conversation with the coalition? So this is actually the underlying budget is what we expect to come in fiscal year 2025. It's not what we have in the bank already or what came in 2024. We have to do an estimate of the 2025. Is that your understanding, Sierra?
Yeah, exactly. And yes, Mark and I spent a long conversation with Stuart, who was explaining the difference to us between what's in your reserves, what's reserved, et cetera. And he gave us some very specific instructions about how to do it. But yes, it's only money you're expecting to come in during that year. It doesn't list the balances that you already have in your accounts. So yeah.
So if I can provide some information to the group, every single year that Southampton has been part of the program, the 3% surcharge has increased every year. So I think we can assume this won't be lower than last year, which was about $301,000. So I think that's a good starting point for that one. The lowest percentage that the town has gotten since we started was 47%, I think, 47.25, and we've averaged about 80%. So choosing like 50% is my recommendation. The other piece that can probably go into it, which we talked about piece for Sierra, but I don't think the group heard, is we're actually getting interest on money in the bank. And I think it was about $18,000 last year. So we can do some percentage of that in the estimate also. And I would arbitrarily say 50%, but again, that we can decide on that group as a group. But those are what would go into the 2025 starting budget. And then you just take out what we're going to have to spend. And it does it, but we can still go back into money that's sitting in the bank for other projects.
Yes, this just allows us to spend the money because as the money comes in gradually throughout the year, it's hitting the bank and then it's got to hit the books and everything. Sometimes, let's say there's a special town meeting in December, we know that money is coming in May, but we can't commit it to a project because we didn't put it in a budget. Whereas in this case, we can commit that money even before we get it. So it's hugely beneficial to us, just in case a big, amazing project comes along. Any questions, thoughts?
What happens to that money that's in the bank? Does the town invest it or?
Yes, it's invested, and we made about $18,000 last year.
CDs? Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
In what, interest or?
Forgive me, for interest, yes.
Okay, that's cool.
It's probably going to be less given the market, but it's still real money.
That's 18,000 is fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. So yeah, that's been a fun learning experience, but just know that draft exists and we will keep finessing it as we get closer and closer to the date. And we'll make sure it goes to you all to vote before we put it anywhere. Okay, so I believe that's it for that item. I have like so many windows open, trying to get back to the minutes. Okay, committee liaison share out. So just a reminder, this is a optional section where you as a committee liaison are welcome to share any updates from your committee. We had some shares last month that were great. Any updates since then? Anyone who wasn't there or didn't share last time, if you have nothing to share, that's okay. Floor is open.
I have no updates for parks.
No update from the planning department, planning board.
No updates for either Greenway or open space for me.
For Greenway, we are definitely putting in a Mass Trails grant, which is going to require a match. I've been bugging the consultant to find out what the total budget was going to be. My best guess is it's going to be in the ballpark of about $50,000 that we would have to see. 50.
Okay.
And some of the match will be in-kind services, not just money from CPC. But I don't know the exact number, but I will probably definitely have it by the next meeting.
Historical Commission will be having a meeting on the 11th. We have some new members. Barry Searle has been assigned, has volunteered to make connection with the Greenway group, and he'll be working on that. The meeting for the 11th has nothing earth-shaking on it, but we'll see what happens at the meeting. And any of you are invited if you'd like to come.
Cool, thank you.
Physically at Town Hall.
Kathleen, I see you have a life update.
Yes, this is Rain.
Congratulations.
Hey, oh my God,
Yeah, he's awesome.
My little.
He's like a warm water ball here. For Conservation Commission, I guess the Mountain Waters project is a go, which is, since the last time I saw you folks. And this month, we might not even meet this month because of the holiday. We meet on Mondays, but in case they're the special reason, we will hold a meeting on Monday next week, the 8th. And I think that will probably be updated in the town website. So yeah, I'm still not sure if we're going to be meeting or not, or need to meet or not until February.
Great. So, and I don't really have any fun updates from housing. Hopefully by next month I might have something. So next we're on to any other business. Does anyone know, like, if we'll ever have a finance committee liaison in this group, or are we just going to live with the fact that that's not a thing?
Have you reached out to them at all? I can do that tomorrow.
I have not since, well, I should talk to someone. Was that about housing? Maybe that was. I do have one contact on finance who I have gotten to attend a meeting, I think, for housing before. But Randall, you may have a little more pull if you want to give it a try. Just see if they have anyone who wants to consider themselves a member. We don't even have them on the roster.
Sure.
Last I heard is they barely had a quorum. They were just sort of reorganizing. So
yeah, I'm not very hopeful that it's going to turn out, but just want to keep that door open.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to invite them. If the committee doesn't mind, I will reach out to them.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Anything else anybody would like to bring up before we schedule our next meeting?
I'd just like to welcome the baby to the very first Zoom meeting.
yes. one of many.
Yeah,
Oh, look at that.
I was wondering if this is actually going to continue via Zoom, or is it just for today? Or
We decided for the winter, where it is cold and dark and sad, we will be continuing via Zoom. And when it is beautiful spring and we all want to get out and about, then we will quite possibly return to in person.
Sierra,
awesome.
are we locked into the 5:30 time? How do people feel about that? Personally, it's inconvenient for me, but I'm only one person here.
How about everyone else? Anyone else?
I'm wide open.
What would be better for you, Bob? Later or earlier?
Well, I'm very used to having meetings at 7:00, but I don't know whether. Again, I'm one person here, and I can stand the inconvenience. Okay, let's put it that way.
Does anybody?
7's a little late for me. 7 would be too late for me. Okay. Anything before 7 would be best.
What about 6 or 6:30?
Yeah. My problem is, of course, my wife being wheelchair bound. I'm doing all the household chores, so I'm preparing dinner. So, which means something I'm not used to, and it takes me forever. But again, I'll go with whatever the group feels is most convenient for them.
I'm flexible.
I'm flexible.
I could do 6:30.
Flexible, but earlier the better.
Yeah. Well, why don't we give it a shot for 6:00?
Okay, the 6.
I know it's not a big difference, but it's enough.
We could do 6:15.
No. 6 o'clock. You're cutting yours here now.
But it doesn't have to be the same time every month. I said we could go, 6 one time, 6:30, 5:30.
6 p.m. next week.
The 6 will be fine with me.
All right, so that's right now. We're on the first Wednesday. So if we did the first Wednesday in February, that would be the 7th. February 7th at 6 p.m. CPC. Right, 6 p.m. on the 7th. Let's not got that backwards. It's not 7 p.m. on the 6th. 6 p.m.
February 7th at 6.
Yeah.
Yep. Good.
Can I just say one thing about in-person versus Zoom? I think once we have projects actually coming in for the spring, I find it better to sort of meet with people in person. My own bias, but for the group to think about that.
I'm into it. Yeah, when we were doing like virtual meetings for everything for a while and we went back to in person, I was so psyched to go back in person. But yeah, when it's like cold and miserable and it's like dark at 4 p.m. in the winter and yeah, it's a whole thing. So I'm definitely into re-looking at being in person from like March and April on, probably.
Well, let's just take 1 month at a time and see what the weather's like and stuff.
Let's see how we do. But then for now, the next meeting will be virtual for February. Okay, well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Wow, 6:10.
Say your last name. Simmons, aye.
Brown eye.
Bye.
Cassis.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.